Hello everyone, and welcome to this Diablo 3 tips video for playing the Barbarian Horde of the 90 Savages set. This video contains some insights I picked up after playing with the set for several hours. We'll go over 10 different things that will hopefully help you improve your gameplay and allow you to more consistently complete higher level greater rifts. First up, let's take a quick look at the gearing. In addition to using 5 of the 6 set pieces, you'll want to take pieces of this set to benefit from its massive damage output and toughness bonuses. These two items buff Frenzy explicitly and are mandatory for the build. Frenzy is a part of the primary skill category, so you'll want to equip these items to boost its damage output significantly. You have some flexibility in your offhand weapon, though this one is recommended. Echoing Fury is a good alternative. And next, let's take a look at the skills. Frenzy is taken as the focal point for the 6-piece set. You gain the benefit from every Frenzy rune from the equipped belt, so you have flexibility with the rune choice. Choose whichever rune matches your highest elemental damage on your gear. Furious Charge is needed to maintain the toughness bonus associated with the Band of Might ring, and the Merciless Assault rune choice is vital to helping keep it active. And the remaining skills all provide damage output or toughness bonuses to help get the most out of the build. And now for the tips. Tip number 1 is to make sure you activate your defensives before you engage enemies. Like many builds, you'll want to make sure you're benefiting from all of your toughness related buffs before you take any significant amounts of damage. Otherwise, you might unnecessarily die very early on when you start a rift, when you enter a new level, or after you've traveled a bit to get to the next pack of enemies. First, cast Warcry, which will generate a small amount of Fury resource to then allow you to cast Battle Rage. This will activate both of your long duration buffs, which will only need to be periodically refreshed a few times throughout the rift. Keep in mind that the 2-piece set bonus will double the effectiveness of your shouts, which includes Warcry and Battle Rage, so these buffs become even more important at higher greater rift levels. Next, focus on a single enemy or smaller pack of low health monsters to build up the maximum 10 stacks of the Frenzy buff, giving you extra toughness from the 4-piece set bonus. You can also activate Wrath of the Berserker to benefit from its toughness buff to help you get started and into the groove of attacking, though ideally you'll want to save it for elites or higher density monster packs. And speaking of attacking, you'll always want to be doing it. Even if you have to move out of an area to get away from elite affixes and let your cooldowns reset or regain health, always be attacking something, even if it's a single enemy or smaller pack of monsters. Of course, it's important to constantly be hacking away with Frenzy to maintain your damage output throughout a rift, but there's also other benefits. You'll want to keep your Frenzy buff stacks refreshed to keep the associated buffs active, and so you can avoid needing to ramp it up again. Constantly attacking will also continue to trigger the stun associated with the Smite rune for the Frenzy skill, keeping enemies crowd controlled and preventing some of the incoming damage on you. You'll notice a lightning bolt falling from the sky if you look for it, indicating where your stun is being placed. This triggers extremely frequently with the attack speed inherent to the Frenzy skill. Attacking with Frenzy will also let you benefit from life on hit to help regenerate your hit points or just keep your health topped off. The next tip is to move as much as possible with the Furious Charge skill in lieu of manually running. Furious Charge provides several benefits. Moving with it will allow you to travel much faster from point to point, and you'll need to frequently cast the skill anyway to keep the toughness buff associated with the Band of Might ring refreshed. Furious Charge will also knock enemies up in the air, briefly interrupting them and reducing the amount of incoming damage done to you. You'll be able to chain together many back-to-back casts of Furious Charge by keeping its recharge time reset. Though the Furious Charge recharge time is relatively short at a base of only 10 seconds, these short few seconds can end up being lethal to you, so you'll want to make sure you are very disciplined about when and where you cast it. Casting Furious Charge in open space without hitting any enemies will trigger its normal full recharge time. During this time frame, you'll be vulnerable to getting trapped in small passageways, stuck in between monsters, or trapped by enemy affixes, unable to move to avoid damage. With the Merciless Assault rune selected for the skill, you can hit enemies to reduce the recharge time. When you cast Furious Charge, look to hit 3 or more enemies. With proper cooldown reduction on your items, this will reduce the recharge time, making the next Furious Charge cast available immediately. Try to always slide through groups of enemies to hit as many as possible. You almost never want to be waiting on the skill to recharge since the skill's benefits are so powerful for this build. In fact, if you can't hit enough enemies to reset the recharge time, it may actually be better for you to run manually until you can find enough enemies. Just make sure you keep the Band of Might toughness buff active. Since you'll be able to move consistently with Furious Charge, which allows you to travel through monsters unhindered, you'll want to leverage this to move from monster pack to monster pack, focusing on higher value targets like elite groups and higher density monster packs. This build is a powerful elite killer, given its high attack speed and ability to quickly generate stacks of the Bane of the Stricken legendary gem. Try to move quickly between elite packs, not wasting any time on lower value, low health monsters. Although the area damage for the build isn't fantastic, you'll want to leverage what area of effect capability it has to the maximum. Like most classes and builds, try to focus on the highest health enemy in a monster pack, like Yellow Elites, and let your area damage bonus from the Bastion's revered legendary power deal damage to other enemies in the vicinity. While you're fighting large packs of monsters, you'll want to move around and reposition yourself to more favorable locations, sometimes preemptively. While it's very tempting to stand still and mow down packs of enemies until they're dead, watching their health bars steadily wither away before your eyes, as you progress into higher Greater Rift levels, you'll need to start leveraging the Furious Charge skill to move around within monster packs frequently. As mentioned previously, use Furious Charge to slide around to avoid taking excess damage and to avoid the buildup of enemy affixes beneath your feet, to avoid enemy missile attacks coming your way, and to avoid big melee swings that enemies may be winding up on you. Furious Charge has very quick movement animation, so you'll be able to keep attacking virtually right away. And of course, you're motivated to keep casting Furious Charge frequently to maintain the Band of Might toughness buff. While you'll want to stay on the move for defensive reasons, you can also move to stay on the offensive. Where possible, relocate yourself to the center of a group to maximize area damage, or to get close to a high health elite, or to reposition to an Oculus Ring area of effect for bonus damage. With Frenzy assigned to the left-click hotkey slot, you can keep left-click held down while you move about with Furious Charge, and as long as your mouse cursor hovers over an enemy, you'll keep attacking. However, you may move when you don't intend to while you're fighting if your mouse cursor isn't hovering over an enemy. If the monster you're targeting dies or moves, you might get dragged through a nearby enemy affix or several of them when you're not prepared. Holding down the shift key while you attack will lock your character in place and prevent this from happening to ensure you don't inadvertently get hung up in the middle of a large fight or take unexpected fatal damage. Be quick with your mouse cursor repositioning as the fight goes on to always ensure it's hovering over an enemy, especially after you move with Furious Charge. The next tip is to maintain your buffs. Of course, it's obvious to do this, but let's talk about what you need to focus on. You'll mainly need to focus on two things. 1. Keep the Mighty buff, granted by the Band of Might ring, active at all times. And 2. Keep the Frenzy buff at maximum stacks at all times. If you follow the advice given earlier in this video, you'll be able to maintain both of these buffs all the time, by constantly attacking and constantly moving with Furious Charge. Just make sure you keep an eye on the buff durations to ensure they don't drop off. The bonuses are too significant, and you may take fatal damage if they expire. The Frenzy buff in particular, you'll want to ensure you maintain while traversing the map by periodically hitting an enemy while you move around. This one can easily drop off when you're not attacking a monster pack. Inversely, while you're fighting a pack, it can be easy to stand still for too long without casting Furious Charge, especially if you're not taking a lot of damage and don't need to move. During these times, it can be easy to drop the Band of Might buff. The Battle Rage and Warcry buffs should not need much attention, but you don't want to lose sight of these. So try to refresh them when possible, such as when you're in the middle of fighting a more comfortable monster pack that's not requiring a lot of attention to avoid incoming damage. And lastly, for Wrath of the Berserker, you can't get enough cooldown reduction with this build to keep the skill active at all times, but you'll want to cast it pretty much whenever it's available. Just try to wait until you've got a fresh new elite or a larger monster pack to maximize the Wrath of the Berserker benefits. You don't want to unnecessarily waste its active time while you're traveling around. It may not be obvious, but casting Furious Charge on enemies will knock them up in the air, interrupting them briefly, preventing incoming damage on you. The skill interrupts every enemy it hits, so slide through enemy packs to hit as many as practical at one time. This can be vital to staying alive when there are a lot of deadly elite affixes building up, or when you come across heavy-hitting monsters that can do significant damage with single swings. If you don't stay on the move like this, you might get surprised by a tremendous amount of damage in an instant. You'll also want to make sure you cast Threatening Shout often. The skill duration lasts 6 seconds, and with your inherent cooldown reduction properties on your gear that you'll want for Wrath of the Berserker anyway, you'll be able to cast Threatening Shout very often. If you constantly cast this skill whenever its cooldown is expired, then you'll benefit from the massive damage buff associated with the Falter rune virtually permanently. And also keep in mind that Threatening Shout is a shout, and its effectiveness is doubled by the 2-piece set bonus. And the last tip is to practice with different variations of the build while you're learning to play with the set, before jumping into the high-end build. Initially, you may want to use gear pieces that offer more toughness than damage output. For example, you can use the Aquila Cuirass legendary power in Kanai's Cube in lieu of Depth Diggers, and you can use a Hellfire Amulet and Unity Ring for extra toughness in lieu of the damage bonus offered by the Endless Walk jewelry set. You can swap out offensive-related passive skills for defensive-related ones, like Superstition or Tough as Nails, and you can also use the Ground Stomp skill, which comes with a powerful area stun and pull-in effect, making it easier to kill off enemies, in lieu of using the periodic bonuses of Wrath of the Berserker. Using these stepping stone variations with a more toughness-oriented approach can help you master the playstyle, and you can later replace them with more damage output-oriented gear pieces and skills after you get proficient. And there's 10 tips to help you improve your Barbarian Savages gameplay. Hopefully you learned something new. Let me know in the comments if you have any more good tips for playing this set that might help others out, and I look forward to seeing you at the next video. Thanks for watching.